Okay, so last week we ended in Genesis 28. We're starting in Genesis 29. Jacob arrives in Paddan Aram. Then Jacob continued on his journey and came to the land of the eastern peoples. There he saw a well in the open country with a flock of sheep lying near it because the flocks were watered from that well. The stone over the mouth of the well was large. When the flocks were gathered there, the shepherds would roll the stone away from the well's mouth and water the sheep. Then they would return the stone to its place over the mouth of the well. Jacob asked the shepherds, "My brothers, where are you from?" "We are from Haran," they replied. He said to them, "Do you know Laban, Noah's grandson?" "Yes, we know him," they answered. Then Jacob asked, "Is he well?" "Yes, he is," they said, and here comes his daughter Rachel with the sheep. "Look," he said, "the sun is still high. It is not time for the flocks to be gathered. Water the sheep and take them back to the pasture." "We can't," they replied, "until all the flocks are gathered and the stone has been rolled away from the mouth of the well. Then we will water the sheep." While he was still talking to them, Rachel came with her father's sheep, for she was a shepherd. And when Jacob saw Rachel's daughter of his uncle Laban and Laban's sheep, he went over and rolled the stone away from the mouth of the well and watered his uncle's sheep. Then Jacob kissed Rachel and began to weep aloud. He told Rachel that he was a relative of her father and son Rebekah. So she ran and told her father. As soon as Laban heard the news about Jacob, his sister's son, he hurried to meet him. He embraced him and kissed him and brought him to his home. And there Jacob told him all these things. And then Laban said to him, "You are my own flesh and blood." Jacob marries Leah and Rachel. After Jacob has stayed with him for a whole month, Laban said to him, "Just because you are a relative of mine, you should work for me for nothing? Tell me what is your wages should be." Now Laban had two daughters. The name of the older was Leah, and the name of the younger was Rachel. Leah had weak eyes, but Rachel had a lovely figure and was beautiful. Jacob was in love with Rachel and said, "I will work for you for 7 years in return for your younger daughter Rachel." Laban said, "It is better I give her to you than some other man. Stay here with me." So Jacob served 7 years to get Rachel, but they seemed like only few days to him because of his love for her. Then Jacob said to Laban, "Give me my wife. My time is completed, and I want to make love to her." So Laban brought together all the people in place and gave a feast. But when evening came, he took his daughter Leah and brought her to Jacob. Jacob made love to her, and Laban gave his servant Zilpah to his daughter as her attendant. When morning came, there was Leah. So Jacob said to Laban, "What is this you have done to me? I served you for Rachel, didn't I? Why have you deceived me?" Laban replied, "It is not our custom here to give the younger daughter in marriage before the older one. Finish this daughter's bridal week, then we will give you the younger one also in return for another 7 years of work." And Jacob did so. He finished the week with Leah, and Laban gave him his daughter Rachel to be his wife. Laban gave his servant Bella to his daughter Rachel as her attendant. Jacob made love to Rachel also, and his love for Rachel was greater than his love for Leah, and he worked for Laban for 7 years. It's kind of crappy that their dad did that. That wasn't really fair to Leah. Jacob's children. When the Lord saw that Leah was not loved, he enabled her to conceive, but Rachel remained childless. Leah became pregnant and gave birth to a son. She named him Reuben, for she said, "It is because the Lord has seen my misery. Surely my husband will love me now." She conceived again, and when she gave birth to a son, she said, "Because the Lord heard that I am not loved, he gave me this one too." So she named him Simon. Again she conceived, and when she gave birth to a son, she said, Now, alas, my husband will have to become attached to me because I have borne him 3 sons. So he named him Levi. 29 to 18 to 27. It was custom of the day for a man to present a dowry or a substantial gift to the family for his future wife. This was to compensate the family for the loss of the girl. Jacob's dowry was not a material possession, for he had none to offer. Instead, he agreed to work 7 years for Laban. But there was another custom in the land that Laban did not tell Jacob. The older daughter had to be married first. By giving Jacob Leah and not Rachel, Laban tricked him into promising another 7 years of hard work. That is messed up. People often wonder, 29, 20 through 28. People often wonder if working a long time for something to desire is worth it. Jacob worked 7 years to marry Rachel. After being tricked, he agreed to work 7 more years for her. Although he did get to marry Rachel shortly after he married Leah, the most important goals and desires are worth working and waiting for. Movies and televisions can create the illusion that people have to wait only about an hour to solve their problems or get what they want. Don't be trapped into thinking the same is true in real life. Patience is hardest when we need it the most, but it is key to achieving our goals. In 29, 23 through 25. Jacob was enraged when he learned that Laban had tricked him. The deceiver of Esau was now deceived himself. How natural is it for us to become upset at the injustice done to us while closing our eyes to the injustice we do for others? Sin has a way of coming back to haunt us. 29 and 28 to 30. Although Jacob was tricked by Laban, he kept his part of the bargain. There was more at stake than just Jacob's hurt. There was Rachel to think about too, as well as God's plan for his life. When we are tricked by others, keeping our part of the bargain may still be wise. Nursing our wounds or plotting revenge makes us unable to see the God's perspective. 29 to 32. Today, parents usually give their children's names that sound good or have sentimental appeal, but the Old Testament portrays a more dynamic use of names. Parents often chose names that reflected the situation at the time of birth. They sometimes hoped their children would fulfill the meaning of the names given to them. Later, the parents could look back and see if their grown children had lived up to their names. Sometimes a person's name was changed because his or her character and name did not match. This happened to Jacob. He grasped the heel figuratively, he deceives. Whose name was changed to Israel? He struggles with God. Jacob's character had changed to the point that he was no longer seen as a deceiver, but a God-honoring man. In 35, she conceived again, and when she gave birth to a son, she said, "This time I will praise the Lord." So she named him Judah. Then she stopped having children. When Rachel saw that she was not bearing Jacob any children, she became jealous of her sister. So she said to Jacob, "Give me children or I'll die." Jacob became angry with her and said, "Am I in the place of God who has kept you from having children?" Then she said, "Here is Bella, my servant. Sleep with her so that she can bear children for me, and I too can build a family through her." So she gave her servant Bella as a wife, and Jacob slept with her, and she became pregnant and bore him a son. Then Rachel said, "God has vindicated me. He has listened to my plea and given me a son." Because of this, she named him Dan. Rachel's servant Bella conceived again and bore Jacob a second son. Then Rachel said, "I have had a great struggle with my sister and have won." So she named him Naphtali. When Leah saw that she had stopped having children, she took her servant Zillah and gave her Jacob as a wife. Leah's servant Zilpah bore Jacob a son, and then Leah what good fortune, so she named him Gad. Leah's servant Zipporah bore Jacob a second son, and then Leah said, "How happy am I, the woman will call me happy." So she named him Asher. During wheat harvest, Reuben went out into the fields and found some mandrake plants, which he brought to his mother Leah, Rachel said to Leah, "Please give me some of your son's mandrakes." But she said to her, "Wasn't it enough that you took away my husband? Will you take my son's mandrakes too?" "Very well," Rachel said. "He can sleep with you tonight in return for your son's mandrakes." So when Jacob came into the field that evening, Leah went out to meet him. "You must sleep with me," she said. "I have hired you with my son's mandrakes." So he slept with her that night. God listened to Leah, and she became pregnant and bore Jacob's fifth son. Then Leah said, "God has rewarded me for giving my servant to my husband." So she named him Issachar. Leah conceived again and bore Jacob a sixth son. And then Leah said, "God has presented me with a precious gift. This time my husband will treat me with honor because I have borne him six sons." So she named him Zebulun. Sometimes later she gave birth to a daughter and named her Dinah. Then God remembered Rachel. He listened to her and enabled her to conceive. She became pregnant and gave birth to a son and said, "God has taken away my disgrace." She named him Joseph and said, "May the Lord add me another son." Jacob's flocks increased. After Rachel gave birth to Joseph, Jacob said to Laban, "Send me on my way so I can go back to my homeland. Give me my wives and children for whom I have served you, and I will be on my way. You know how much work I have done for you." But Laban said to him, "If I have found favor in your eyes, please stay. I have learned by divination that the Lord has blessed me because of you." He added, "Name your wages and I will pay them." Jacob said, "You know how I have worked for you and how your livestock have fared under my care. The little you have before I came has increased greatly, and the Lord has blessed you wherever I have been. But now when may I do something for my own household?" "What shall I give you?" he asked. "Don't give me anything," Jacob replied, "but if you will do this one thing for me, I will go on tending your flocks and watching over them. Let me go through all your flocks today and remove from them every speckled or spotted sheep, every dark-colored lamb, and every spotted or speckled goat. They will be my wages, and my honesty will testify for me in the future. Whenever you check on your wages, you have paid me. Any goat in my possession that is not speckled or spotted, or lamb that is not dark or colored, will be considered stolen." "Agreed," said Laban. "Let it be as you have said." That same day he removed all the male goats that were streaked or spotted, and all the speckled or spotted female goats, all that had white on them, and all dark-colored lambs, and he placed them in the care of his sons. And then he put a 3-day journey between him and Jacob, while Jacob continued to tend to the rest of Laban's flocks. Jacob, however, took fresh cut branches from popular almond and plane trees and made white strips on them by peeling the bark and exposing the white inner wood from the branches. Then he placed the peeled branches in all the watering troughs so that they would be directly in front of the flocks when they came to drink. When the flocks were in heat and came to drink, they made it in front of the branches. They bore young that were streaked or speckled or spotted. Jacob set apart the young of the flocks by themselves, but made the rest face the streaked, dark-colored animals that belonged to Laban. Thus he made a separate flocks for himself, and did not put him with Laban's animals. Whenever stronger females were in heat, Jacob would place the branches in the troughs in front of the animals so that they would mate near the branches. But if the animals were weak, he would not place them there. So the weak animals went to Laban, and the strong ones to Jacob. In this way the man grew exceedingly prosperous, and came to own large flocks and female and male servants and camels and donkeys. Each of the 3 and 33, each of the 3 great patriarchs, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, had wives with difficulty conceiving. It is interesting to note how each man reacted to his wife's predicament. Abraham had relations to Sarah's servant in order to have his own children, thus introducing bitterness and jealousy into the family. Isaac, by contract, prayed to God when his wife was barren. God eventually answered his prayers, and Rebekah had twin sons. Jacob, however, followed his grandfather's example and had children through his wife's servants, leading to sad and sometimes bitter consequences. Rachel and Leah were locked in a cruel contest in their race to have more children. They both gave their servants to Jacob as concubines. Jacob would have been wise to refuse, even though it was an accepted custom of the day. The fact that a custom is socially acceptable does not mean it is wise or right. You will be spared much heartbreak if you look at the potential consequences to you or others of your actions. Are you doing anything right now that might cause future problems? 30:22-24. Eventually, God answered Rachel's prayers and gave her a child of her own. In the meantime, however, she had given her servant to Jacob. Trusting God when nothing seemed to happen is difficult, but it is harder still to live with the consequences of taking matters into your own hands. Resist the temptation to think God has forgotten you. Have patience and courage and wait for God to act. So, Rachel. History seems to repeat itself here. Twice, a town well at Haran was the site of significant events in one's family story. It was here that Rebekah met Eliezer, an Abraham's servant, who had come to find a wife for Isaac. Some 40 years later, Rebekah's son Jacob returned to the favor by serving his cousin Rachel and her sheep from the same well. The relationship that developed between them not only reminds us that the romance is not a modern invention, but also teaches us a few lessons about patience and love. Jacob's love for Rachel was both patient and practical. Jacob had the practical patience to wait 7 years for her, but he kept busy in the meantime. His commitment to Rachel kindled a strong loyalty within her. In fact, her loyalty to Jacob got out of hand and became self-destructive. She was frustrated by her barrenness and desperate to compete with her sister for Jacob's affection. She was trying to gain from Jacob what he had already given, devoted love. Rachel's attempt to earn the unearnable are a picture of much greater error we can make. Like her, we find ourselves trying to somehow earn love, God's love, but apart from his word, we end up with one of two false ideas. Either we think we have been good enough to deserve his love, or we recognize we are unable to earn his love and assume that it cannot be ours. If the Bible makes no other point, it shouts this one: God loves us. He has no beginning and is incredibly patient. All we need to do is respond, not try to earn what is freely offered. God has said in so many ways, I love you. I have demonstrated that love to you, but all I have done for you. I have even sacrificed my son Jesus to pay the price for what is unacceptable about you, your sin. Now live because of my love. Respond to me. Love me with your whole being. Give yourself to me in thanksgiving, not as payment. Live life fully in the freedom of knowing you are loved. Now, Rachel's strengths and accomplishments. She showed great loyalty to her family. She mothered Joseph and Benjamin after being buried for many years. Weaknesses and mistakes. Her envy and competitiveness marred her relationship with her sister Leah. She was capable of dishonesty when she took her loyalty too far. She failed to recognize that Jacob's devotion was not dependent on her ability to have children. Lessons from her life. Loyalty must be controlled by what is true and right. Love is accepted, not earned. Vital statistics. Where? Haran. Occupation: shepherdess, housewife. Relatives: father Laban, aunt Rebekah, sister Leah, husband Jacob, sons Joseph and Benjamin. Key verse. So Jacob served 7 years to get Rachel, but they seemed like only a few days to him because of his love for her. Genesis 29:20. Rachel's story is told in Genesis 29:1, 35-20. She's also mentioned in Ruth 4:11. So the next time we start, we're going to be starting in 31. I have to get ready for work, but everyone have a really good morning, and we will continue with Genesis another day. See you later, guys.